thank you for so much for joining us for this lecture 2 of the Cricket South Africa Level 1 Umpiring course hosted by Western Province Cricket Umpires Association. My name is Abdullah Steenkamp, and my batting partner, my usual batting partner for this evening, is Tom Okarosi. The format of tonight's lecture will be as follows. I will kick off with laws 6, 7, 8, and 9. I'll then take a single, hand over the strike to Tom. Tom will then cover laws 10 and 11. And after law 11 is done, Tom will then go to the chat box, check if there are any questions or comments in the chat box, answer them. And after that, we will open the floor, deactivate your mics, and you can ask a content-related question. So kicking off, law number 6. So what is law number 6? Law number 6 is the pitch. So when it comes to the pitch, what is the length of the pitch? Length of the pitch, 20.12 meters or 22 yards. I prefer the metric system because most measuring tapes is metric and so much easier to check the length of the pitch using your measuring tape. So 20.12 meters is the length of the pitch. In the exam, you can put both. You can either answer, and there will be questions in the exam about the pitch and its length, and the next law that we're doing, the creases. But to focus on the pitch, length 20.12 meters or 22 yards. What is the width of the pitch? 3.05 meters or 10 feet. You'll notice in the pic the bowling creases. We will see in the next law the length of the bowling creases, and for now it is 2.64 meters, but we'll get there in the next law. But what I want to point out is, so yes, the length of the bowling crease is 2.64 meters. Sorry, the width of the length of the bowling crease 2.64, but if you look at the width of the pitch, it's 3.05 meters, so slightly longer than the bowling crease. So when it comes to the selection and preparation of the pitch, so usually a cricket game, let's say, and I'll use a test match as an example, the laws of cricket focuses on more day cricket, like a test match which spans over 5 days, or in South Africa, Division 1 and Division 2 provincial cricket, they play 4-day cricket. There are some competition that spans 3 days, some 2, but the laws focuses on more day cricket. And when it comes to the selection and preparation of the pitch, so let's say our test match, Monday, day 1, let's say it starts at 10 o'clock. The ground authority, the curator, and his or her team, they will be responsible for choosing which pitch the game is going to play on, and they need to make sure that they prepare the pitch and get it ready for our test match. And then, after the game has started, toss will take place at 9:30. We have a 10 o'clock start, so once that toss takes place, the umpires, they now in control of the use of the pitch and the maintenance for the 5 days that the test match is going to be played over. Does the law allow for the pitch to be changed after the game has started? So yes, the law allows for it, but there are certain conditions that needs to be met. Firstly, the umpires, they need to together decide that they feel that the pitch or the match pitch that was selected has now become dangerous or unreasonable. That's the first condition. And if yes, if they feel it's now dangerous or unreasonable, and then for them to change it, they need to go to both captains, and both captains needs to say yes. If both captains give consent, then we can change the match pitch. For junior cricket, the lengths that I've in the previous slide that I've covered of 20.12 meters and the width of 3.05 meters, that's for senior men's cricket, women's cricket, and under 13 and above. But for junior cricket, let's say under 11, under 9, under 7 cricket, the law guides us by telling us the governing body for cricket in your country, they can decide how long the pitch is for junior cricket. Next law is the creases. And I'm going to give you a tip. This is 10 marks in the exam. I'm giving you away free 10 marks. You need to know the names of the creases. You need to know the length of the creases. Let me tell you a story. I've played the game at club level here in Cape Town for, I think, like 25 years. And I stopped after 25 years. Then I joined the Umpires Association. Then I did my level 1 course. So for those 25 years while I played, those creases that you now can see in the pic, those are lines, I called them lines. For 25 years, they were lines. I actually never knew these lines that I saw week in and week out. These lines actually have names. And they also have measurements. I thought they were just lines were drawn and they were just randomly drawn by the ground staff. No, they have names and they have measurements. So now in the exam, they will question you about the names of these creases and there will be questions about the measurements. This is an example of a provincial ground in South Africa. It's called the J.B. Marks Oval. It's in Potchefstroom, South Africa, in the Northwest Province. The Division 1 team called the Dragons, they play their home games at this particular ground. And here you can see the lines or the creases drawn on the pitch. Again, the laws focuses on more day cricket, and I'm going to focus on the name of the creases. There are 3 of them, and those measurements. And in the next slide, we will go through them. So let's start with on the right hand side. There we'll see the name of the creases. So here you can see this is where the stumps are pitched. These dots is where the stumps are. So the front line, what is the name of that crease? It's called the popping crease. Next, what is the name of these sidelines or the side creases? They call the return crease. There are 2 of them. This is the one return crease, and here's the other return crease. And lastly, the line where the stumps are in, that is called the bowling crease. So just to recap, 3 creases. One is the popping crease, one is the bowling crease, and then there are 2 return creases. And you can see in the pic, it's obviously scaled, but it also shows the length of the pitch, which is 20.12 meters. And it is from the back edge of the bowling crease on the one side, right up until the back edge of the bowling crease on the other side. So now we know the names of these creases. I mentioned earlier that they do have measurements as well. Let's start with the popping crease. The minimum length of the popping crease is 3.66 meters. Again, I prefer using the metric system. In the exam, you can answer both. You can either put, if they do ask you what's the length of the popping crease, you can put 3.66 meters or 12 feet. So minimum length of the popping crease, 3.66 meters. So what do I mean by minimum length? All the law tells us is, it just guides us. It needs to be minimum 3.66 meters. It can be longer, it can be 4 meters, it can be 5 meters, 6 meters, whatever the case. All they guide us is, when it comes to the return, the popping crease, minimum length of 3.66 meters. Let's now move to the return creases. There are two of them. They also have a minimum length, and that minimum length of the two return creases is 2.44 meters. So the one return crease on this side will be 2.44 meters, and on the other side it will also be 2.44 meters minimum length. So all the law tell us minimum it needs to be 2.44. You can draw the return creases 3 meters, 5 meters, 10 meters. All they tell us is what the minimum length of the return crease is to be. And then the bowling crease. Now the bowling crease is an exact measurement. So that exact measurement is from, you can look at the pick and look at the arrows, from the inside edge of the one return crease right up until the inside edge of the other return crease. And that exact measurement in meters is 2.64 meters. So again, to recap the measurements, minimum length of our popping crease, 3.66 meters. Minimum length of our two return creases, 2.44 meters. And for the bowling crease, there is an exact measurement, and that is measured from this inside line of the one return crease, where the arrow starts on this side, right up until the inside edge of the return crease on the other side. And that exact length is 2.64 meters. Very important duty of the umpires and together, and that's why we need to be at the field 45 minutes before play starts. And one of the big reasons why we need to do this, lots of duties that we need to perform, and Tom covered them on Monday. But one of those duties are, we as the umpires needs to make sure that these creases are, the measurements are correct and they're drawn correctly. Big part of our duty. The two umpires together, they need to make sure. So what they will do is, we need to get to the field 45 minutes before play starts. We have a measuring tape, preferably so I have two measuring tapes. I've got a 30 meter and I have a 5 meter. So for the 30 meter, I will measure the length of the pitch and I'll make sure it's 20.12 meters. And then the 5 meter tape I'll use to check the measurement of the creases and make sure that they are correct. So again, very important, we need to know the names of these creases and we need to know the measurement of these creases. Just to give you another measurement, from the back edge of the bowling crease, where the arrow starts here, till the back edge of the popping crease, that measurement is 1.22 meters. Again, this is also one of the measurements that we need to double check as umpires before the game starts. So if I can give you a small tip, or this is how by just memorizing one measurement, I can derive two other measurements from this one. So if we take this 1.22 meter measurement, If I multiply 1.22 meters times 2, what is the answer that I get? 1.22 times 2. Yes, it is 2.44 meters. And which crease is 2.44 meters? Yes, the return crease is 2.44 meters. And second tip, if I multiply 1.22 by 3, what answer do I get? Yes, correct. 1.22 times 3 is 3.66 meters. And which measurement is 3.66 meters? The popping crease. So now you can see from this one measurement of 1.22 meters, I can derive the measurement of the return crease and of the popping crease. Just a tip. This helps me remember what those measurements are of the popping crease and the return crease. So this is a pick. Let me just go back to our first pick. So this is how it actually looks. So to start with this front line, what is this name of the front line? Yes, correct. It's called the popping crease. And what is the minimum length of the popping crease? Correct. 3.66 meters. So yes, technically if you want to, you can draw this popping crease right up until the boundary if you want to. I mean, they don't do it, make it that long, but you can if you want to. But all the law tell us minimum length of this popping crease 3.66 meters. Our return creases, there are two of them, and here's the one, and on the other side is the other return crease. Minimum length 2.44 meters. So yes, you can draw it right up until the boundary if you want to. You can make it 3 meters, 5 meters. All the law tell us the minimum length should be 2.44 meters. And the third crease is called the bowling crease. This is the crease where the stumps are in. And this is an exact length from the inside edge of this one return crease right up until the inside edge of the other return crease. And can you remember what the exact length is? Well done, 2.64 meters. So in this pic, you'll see there are other lines. And what are those lines? These lines are, this was a T20 game. In T20 game, there are wide guidelines, and this is to assist the umpires, in consistently calling wides. But in Test match cricket or more day cricket, you will not find these wide lines. I'm just mentioning it because you might thought, but I thought, Abdullah, you said there's only 3 creases. Yeah, I do see other lines here as well. So what are those other lines? So this was a 20 over game, so there were these wide guidelines. But in a test match like this was a test match between India and Australia, you won't see those wide guidelines. All you'll see is the popping crease, the return creases, and the bowling crease. And those other 2 small lines that we also see here, those are called the protected area markings. We later in the course we will get, especially if we do, those of you that's going to do level 2 and level 3, we can go into lots of detail about the protected area, what those measurements are. What do we need to do as umpires? We need to protect that area. How do you protect? Yeah, so we'll go into much detail for those of you that's going to do level 2 and level 3. So yeah, I spent a bit of time on these creases because, as I said to you, they are 10 marks in the exam, their names and the length or their measurements. Penultimate law that I'm covering before handing over to Tom. Only 2 slides here, and it's the wickets. So when it comes to the wickets, the law guides us by telling us the width of the wickets needs to be 22.86 centimeters. Or if you want to use the imperial measurement system, 9 inches. The length of the wickets, and this is measured And if you look at the pick, you can see it's measured because this bottom part goes into the ground, so it's measured from here right up until here. That measurement is 71.12 centimeters. Yes, there are bails on top of the stumps, and the law guides us when it comes to these bails. They guide us by telling us when they're on top of the stumps, they shouldn't be more than 1.27 centimeters above them. They need to fit in perfectly, into there'll be grooves on top of the stumps. You should not be forcing them in. They should be fit perfectly in between in those grooves. Like if I can go back to those the pick, here you can see bales will lie vertically and they needs to sit in here perfectly. The law also allows for devices that can be put in place for player safety. So you can put a device on those bales that can limit the traveling distance. But before you are allowed to use those devices, you need the governing body of cricket in your area to approve those devices. So are you allowed to take off the bails? Are you allowed to dispense with the bails? Yes, the law allows for it because there are times where you need to take off the bails. When do you think you need to take off the bails? It is in conditions where you have strong winds and the bails keeps on falling off on top from the top of the stumps. So if this happens, yes, the law allows us to remove the bales from the top of the stumps while the wind is blowing strongly. And if you do decide to remove the bales from the top of the stumps, you need to remove it from both ends. You'll often find, and it's amazing, in strong wind conditions, and here in Cape Town, in South Africa, we often have strong winds in certain areas of Cape Town. But you'll be amazed that how often, yes, the wind will be gusting across the field, but funny enough, only one side would continuously fall off. The other side would still be intact. I find that amazing, but it happens so often. You hardly find that bales will blow off both sides continuously. 99% of the time, it would only fall off from the one side. So now, back in my playing days, we didn't know the law, and we didn't know. I played third division cricket, so sometimes we didn't have umpires. Well, we use player umpires, and the bails would only fall off from the one side, and we took off the bails from the one side. The play umpire would keep it and will leave the bails on the other side because, I mean, logic for us, it only falling off on the one side, so other side is staying on, so we'll keep it on. No, according to the law, if you do decide to remove the bails, like in my example where it only fell off from the one side, if you do decide to take it off, you need to remove it from both ends. Even though it's not falling off from the other side, the law wants us to remove it from both ends. And then if you do remove the bells from both ends, and sometimes the wind do die down later in the day or late in the afternoon. So as soon as the wind dies down, please put the bells back on. Last law that I'm covering before I'm handing over to Tom. Law 9 covers the preparation and the maintenance of the playing area, the field. That area that's inside the rope. I mentioned when I started the session that the laws of cricket focuses on more day cricket, like for example a test match that spans over 5 day. So now you'll see that the law guides us. Before the game starts, let's use a test match between South Africa and Zimbabwe. Before the game starts, the curator, he or she, and the staff, they will prepare the pitch. They'll select the pitch. They'll prepare the pitch, get the pitch game ready. They'll get the field, the outfield also game ready. But once the game has started, once the toss took place, now it is for the umpires. They will decide how the playing area will be maintained. And how do they decide? Wicket guided by the law. The law tells us exactly once the game has started how we need to prepare and how we need to maintain the playing area after the game has started. So this is what Law 9 is about. So now when it comes to mowing, so again, before the game has started, the curator will mow the pitch, but get it ready. The curator will mow the outfield and get it ready for the game. But once the game has started, now the law guides us on exactly how, when it comes to mowing of the pitch and outfield, what needs to be done. The law tells us when it comes to the pitch and the outfield, it needs to be mowed on each day that the match is going to take place. Again, we're focusing on border cricket like our test match that spans over 5 days. So now on day 2, the law tells us pitch and outfield to be mowed. We'll later in the slide we'll see what time. The law also guides us in terms of what time, but it's telling us the law wants both the pitch and the outfield to be mowed on day 2, day 3, day 4, and day 5. So when we get there the morning of day 5, the law tells us pitch and outfield must be mowed. When we get to there the morning of day 3, they want the pitch and outfield to be mowed. Similarly, day 4 and day 5. So why is it so important that the pitch and outfield to be mowed on each day? You will be amazed how quickly grass grow overnight, especially on the pitch. So in the next law, Tom will cover what needs to happen in a test match, so that spans over 5 days. Tom will tell us that the pitch needs to be covered on the evening of each day. So overnight, that pitch needs to be covered. But Tom will go into more detail in the next law. But the point I'm trying to make is, so yes, now the pitch needs to be covered overnight. So we'll cover it the evening, and covers then needs to be removed the next morning. You will be amazed to see how quickly the grass grow overnight. Amazed. I saw it with my own eyes. I was reserve umpire for many a provincial game, and where I supervised the closing of the pitch the evening of day 1, and I was there the morning of day 2 when they removed the covers, and you'll be amazed how quickly the grass grew on the pitch. So now we need to try to keep conditions exactly the same over the 5 days. And this is the main reason why pitch and outfield needs to be mowed on each day, because the grass grows so quickly overnight. If you're just going to leave it, you can just imagine, if you're going to leave it and not cut the grass, that grass will be thick on day number 5. And obviously it's going to be thick. It's going to definitely favor one side. So to try to keep conditions the same over the 5 days, the pitch and the outfield needs to be mowed on each day. What are the timing of these mowings? So now we know the pitch and outfield needs to be mowed. Law guides us. Law tells us. When it comes to mowing of the pitch, to be completed not later than 30 minutes before the game is going to start on day 2. I'll use an example. Let's say on day 2, play is going to start at 10 o'clock in the morning. So now when it comes to mowing of the pitch needs to be completed by 9:30. So yes, you can mow 9:25, you can mow 9:20, 9:50, no issue. Even 9 o'clock, no issue. But it needs to be done by 9:30. And in a test match, the fourth umpire will supervise the mowing of the pitch, and he or she will make sure that it's done by 9:30 together with the curator. So that is the pitch, needs to be done by 9:30. When it comes to mowing of the outfield, needs to be done by 9:45 on each day. So day 2, outfield needs to be mowed by 9:45. Done. Similarly, day 3, day 4, and day 5. So now we've covered mowing, when, and the timing of these mowing. Next, again, the laws of cricket. We're focusing on modern cricket, like our test match. And does the law allow for clearing of debris from the pitch? What is this debris that the law is speaking about? This debris is those that on a turf wicket, you'll find those as the bowlers run to deliver the ball. The batters, play their shots, and they run on the pitch. Small little pebbles, small little stones do come loose on those grass or turf wickets, and these small pebbles or stones get scattered all across the pitch. So the technical term that the law uses, the name is debris. So as the bowler runs to deliver, batters run, small stones come loose on the turf or the grass pitch, and it gets scattered across the pitch. So now you'll find lots of pebbles, lots of stones scattered across the pitch. Does the law allow for these small pebble stones to be cleared? Yes, the law allows for it. The law also guides us when we can clear this pitch from this debris or pebbles or stones. Firstly, before the start of each day's play, before the morning of day 2, we need to clear the debris from the pitch. We'll see later in the slide how we clear the small stones from the pitch. Secondly, we can clear the debris from the pitch, and who's we? Not the umpires, the ground staff. They will clear it. So secondly, between innings, it needs to clear the debris. It needs to clear the debris from the pitch before rolling is to take place. And your intervals for meals in modern cricket, every day we have a lunch interval and a tea interval. So during your lunch and your tea interval, the law allows for the pitch to be cleared from this debris, the small stones that are scattered across the pitch. The law allows for this ground staff to clear the debris from the pitch. So now we know, yes, the law allows for these stones to be cleared. We now know when it can be cleared. So how do we clear the small stones from the pitch? Again, the law guides us. And the law tells us it needs to be done by sweeping. And what do the ground staff use? They use a broom. So they use a broom to clear the debris from the pitch. So 99% of the time we'll use a broom to clear the debris. There is a but, and the law tells us if we, the umpires, feel that that the surface of the pitch is brittle, and if we are going to use a broom to sweep off the debris, it might be detrimental to the pitch. You can actually tell the ground staff, please don't use a broom to clear the pitch. Please use your hand. Yes, some part of the world, like in South Africa, the pitches are hard. So using a broom, no issue. I know pitches in New Zealand, Australia, England. The content of the soil there is also hard. So we can use a broom to clear the debris. But I do know in some places of the world, especially the subcontinent, the soil content is different. It's not as hard. and sometimes those pitches are brittle. So yes, 90% you can, 99% we use a broom, but in that odd occasion where umpires feel that, oh, we're going to use a broom, might be detrimental to the surface, please tell the curator and the staff to use their hands and not a broom. So when it comes to rolling of the pitch, again, this rolling focuses on after the game has started. Before the game has started, the curator can roll to his or her heart's content. They need to get the pitch ready for the game, so they can roll as long and as many hours as they want. But once the game has started, like our test match between South Africa and Zimbabwe that spans over 5 days, once the game has started, the law guides us in terms of when the pitch can be rolled and how long this pitch can be rolled. The law specific. And we, the umpires, we need to make sure that that the pitch are rolled in the timings that the law stipulate, and also that it's rolled the days, like you will see now, when it can be rolled, and also there's a specific timing for it to be rolled. So let's have a look at the frequency and duration of the rolling. This is now after the game has started. So in our test match, South Africa, Zimbabwe, day one, let's say game starts at 10 o'clock. Toss took place at 9:30. So now the law tells us that after the game has started, the pitch can only be rolled on before the start of each subsequent day's play. That's the one occasion. And the second one is before the start of each subsequent innings. And then, in terms of how long the pitch to be rolled, maximum of 7 minutes, not more than 7 minutes. Yes, can roll for 5 minutes. Yes, can roll for 3 minutes. Yes, can roll for 1 minute, but not more than 7. Cannot roll 8 minutes or 9 or 10 or 20. Max 7. So now we know after the game has started that the pitch, maximum time that the pitch is to be rolled, 7 minutes. And when it can be rolled, before the start of each innings and before the start of each subsequent day's play. I'll give you a practical example of how it works in a test match. I just want to get to the next slide. So at most international grounds, you will find more than one roller available. They usually have 3 rollers available. On the right, you'll see a big, we call it a big or heavy roller. Left bottom is the medium or medium roller, and left top is the light or hand roller. At most international grounds, they'll have 3 rollers available. Some grounds will only have 2 rollers available. Some only 1 roller available, just depending on what's available at the ground. But if you do have more than 1 roller available, like in test matches, this is how it practically works. So I mentioned that it can be rolled before the start of each subsequent innings. So in our test match, let's say South Africa won the toss and they're batting first. Game starts at 10 o'clock. Let's say Zimbabwe dismissed South Africa for 300 in their first innings. So now South Africa is dismissed. There will now be a 10-minute change of innings interval. And Tom will go into more detail in Law 11 about intervals. But there will now be a 10-minute change of innings interval before Zimbabwe go bat in their first innings. So now what happens during this 10-minute change of innings interval? So the on-field umpires will ask the captain of Zimbabwe whether he or she wants rolling. And if they do want rolling, how long they want rolling to be and which roller they want. Let's say there are 3 rollers available. So we'll tell the Zimbabwean captain, Cappy, there are 3 rollers, big, heavy, or hand. Umpire, I want the big roller. And how long? Please umpire 7 minutes. The fourth umpire will then supervise this rolling and make sure that it's rolled for 7 minutes and that they use the heavy roller. And this rolling will take place between uh, before the start of the Zimbabwean innings. And let's say Zimbabwe now bat in their first innings, and let's say they get dismissed for 250. Now South Africa will go bat in their second innings. Same thing will apply. Umpires will go to the captain of South Africa, ask him or her whether they want rolling. And which roller and how long. Umpire, I want the medium roller and I want it for 5 minutes. No problem. Fourth umpire will supervise before South Africa goes to bat in their second innings. Will supervise that, make sure that the medium roller is used for 5 minutes. And as soon as South Africa is dismissed in their second innings, before Zimbabwe will go bat in their second innings, exactly the same will happen. So that's before the start of each subsequent innings. Also, rolling is allowed before the start of each subsequent day's play. So on day 2, and we'll see later in the slide when on day 2 rolling to take place. So on the morning of day 2, rolling to take place. The morning of day 3, rolling to take place. Similarly on day 4 and the morning of day 5. So when will this rolling on morning of day 2, day 3, day 4 and day 5 take place? There's a 20-minute window period for this rolling to happen. If play starts 10 o'clock on day 2, anytime between 9:30 and 9:50, rolling to take place. Similarly, on day 3, if it starts at 10, anytime between 9:30 and 9:50. Same principle for day 4 and day 5. Let's use a practical example to show you how it works in a test match. So on the morning of day 2, play starts at 10 o'clock. Umpires and players are usually there 2 hours before, so 8 o'clock we're there already. So the fourth umpire on the morning of day 2 will go to the captain of the side that's batting on that morning. And let's say South Africa is batting on the morning of day 2. The fourth umpire will go to the captain of South Africa. Captain, do you want rolling this morning? If yes, which roller and how long? And let's say the captain say, yes, umpire, I want rolling, big roller for 7 minutes. The fourth umpire will then go to the curator, say, yes, they want rolling. And so fourth umpire will supervise the rolling and make sure that it happens between 9:30 and 9:50. Same thing will happen on day 2, on day 3, on day 4, and day 5. Are you allowed to water the pitch after the game has started? Absolutely not. Pitch not to be watered after the game has started. For the duration of the game, pitch not to be watered. Are we allowed to remark the creases? Yes, a law allows for it. Many a times bowlers landing, or especially the popping crease, with the front foot landing, ball after ball on that popping crease, the law allows for the creases to be remarked, and it's usually done during our intervals. Are we allowed to maintain the footholds? Yes, the law allows for footholds to be fixed. What are these footholds? You'll see in modern cricket with bowlers, and more or less most bowlers, let's say right-arm bowlers, they'll more or less land, they'll put their front foot more or less in the same place, ball after ball after ball. And after many overs, a hole starts to develop where that front foot continuously lands. So the law allows for those footholds to be fixed by the ground staff. And yes, they have a method. They've got quick setting fillings that they use. So usually at the end of the day, they will fix those footholds. The law allows for those footholds. Player safety is important. We don't want a bowler to not feel secure where that front foot lands. We don't want a bowler, there's a hole, the front foot lands, and he or she goes over the ankles. So yes, the law allows for the footholds to be repaired. Also, again, player safety is important. Sometimes the pitch is a bit moist. For bowlers to have a secure landing, the law allows for sawdust to be used where their feet land, especially that front foot of theirs. So yes, sawdust can then be put on where those front foot continuously lands. So Tom, thank you so much. That is all I'm covering. I'm now taking a single, and you can take strike for law 10 and 11. Over to you, Thomas.
Thank you very much, Abdullah, and good day to all the candidates who have joined us. So law 10 is the covering of the pitch. Are we allowed to cover the pitch? If so, when should we cover the pitch and how? Law tells us that before the match, the use of covers is the responsibility of the ground authority and may include full covering of the pitch and indeed the square and the field. We will see different methods of how different pitches and fields are covered around the world. After the start of the match, the ground authority shall grant suitable facility to the captains to inspect the pitch before the nomination of their players and to the umpires to discharge their duties. Okay, so obviously, if there is bad weather around, the pitch will be covered before a match. But for us to toss, remember we said that a toss can take place 30 minutes before the start of play earliest and 15 minutes before the start of play latest. The captains would obviously like to see the pitch before making a decision whether they can bat or bowl first. Ideally, if the sun is shining and we arrive at the ground 45 minutes or earlier before the start of play, then the covers should be off. We as umpires, we need to discharge our duties by measuring the pitch, measuring the creases, as Abdullah has just taught us the length of the pitch, the width of the pitch, as well as the measurements of the creases. The wickets as well. We also do sometimes for international matches have to measure the stumps to make sure that they are the required size. So let's talk about during the match. When do we cover the pitch? Do we need to cover the pitch during the match? Law tells us that unless provided otherwise by regulations or by agreement before the toss, on each night of the match and in inclement weather at any time during the match, the whole pitch, remember we said the length of the pitch is 20.12 meters and the width is 3.05 meters. The whole pitch and a minimum of 1.22 meters beyond the pitch at each end shall be covered. So you're looking at a pitch cover of at least 20.12 meters plus 1.22 plus 1.22 meters to cover as required by law. The bowler's run-ups, where possible, shall also be covered because for the bowlers running in, they need a stable and hard surface underneath them, not a soft, wet, and muddy surface. That would be dangerous. So when do we remove the covers? The covers shall be removed as soon as practical on each day that play is expected to take place. So usually when we get to a field on a beautiful day, when there is good weather around, then the covers are already off when both teams and the umpires arrive. If covers are used during the day as protection from inclement weather, or if inclement weather delays the removal of overnight covers, they shall be removed as soon as conditions allow. So we always try and let the pitch breathe for as long as possible. So when the ground staff arrives early morning before the start of a day's play, they will remove the covers as soon as possible if the weather is good. So here we have our first example of covers, not only on the pitch, not only on the square, but the entire outfield also covered. And this is in Sri Lanka. They do have heavy monsoon type rains, and also their grounds do not drain that well. So you'll often find that if there is rain at a match in Sri Lanka, especially an international match, they won't just cover the pitch, they won't just cover the square, they will cover the entire outfield as well. You'll find as well underneath the main covers for the field, there are extra covers covering the playing strip, just to make sure that the pitch does not get any water on it. Then let's move over to England, and we've got an example here of a hovercraft cover that is automated, and this is Trent Bridge in Nottingham, and we will watch a video as to how these covers come on in the case of a rain break.
This is the scene at Trent Bridge, Nottingham. Second day, the game between Nottinghamshire and Durham. As last week, it started to rain. Special cover being brought into play and brought to the centre to cover the wicket. Although it's daytime, the lights are on, which just assists the batsman's view a little. Players trudge off into the pavilion. Some of the members have already got their umbrellas up.
So there you see the different resources available to ground staff at different fields around the world. What's important is if you do not have enough ground staff to pull covers, you need to, as explained on Monday in law number 2, you need to discuss at the toss as the umpires to both captains that the players of both teams need to help to pull covers in the event that we don't have enough ground staff to pull covers. Moving on to law 11, which is the last law that we will be presenting today. It is a meaty law, and it's all about how the intervals are integrated into a day's play and how we can move around and change the times of those intervals to maximize play. Firstly, let's define what an interval is. Law tells us that the following shall be classified as scheduled intervals. And remember that Abdullah has mentioned that the law is based on multiple day matches, similar to a 5-day test match. So the first interval we're going to learn about is the period between close of play on one day and the start of play on the next day's play. So that is considered an interval. The next interval we're going to learn about is the interval between innings. And throughout the slides to come, we will learn about the times and the durations of these intervals. We also have intervals for meals, and we also have intervals for drinks. The last interval that we need to know about is any other agreed interval. I'll give you an example of this one. Back in the early 90s, I think it was, the Queen of England wanted to meet with the players during an Ashes test match at Lord's between England and Australia. And the test match playing times for test matches in England, the morning session is from 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. The Queen could only meet the players at 12 for 15 minutes on the field. So they had a special interval that was agreed before the match starts on day one of the test match from 12 until 12:15. That is an example of any other agreed interval. In our T20 competitions around the world, the IPL and the SA20, for example, have what are called strategic timeouts. Those are also agreed intervals. So let's look at test match times in South Africa, and we will be referring to these throughout the examples in Law 11 when we talk about moving the agreed time for an interval. In law, we will notice that there isn't a specific time and duration for lunch and tea intervals. They are specified in the International Cricket Council playing conditions, that they will be 40 minutes for a lunch break and 20 minutes for a tea interval. And then the home association, South Africa in this example, will stipulate the playing times. So in South Africa, most of our test matches start at 10 a.m. in the morning, and each session is 2 hours. So the morning session is from 10 a.m. until midday. Lunch is 40 minutes from 12 until 12:40. Then we have the afternoon session, which is also 2 hours, 12:40 until 14:40. Then we have our 20-minute tea break from 14:40 until 3 p.m. And we have our evening session from 3 p.m. until 5 p.m. The playing conditions for test match cricket stipulate that a minimum of 90 overs should be played in a day. If at 5 p.m. we haven't reached 90 overs, then an additional 30 minutes are played to try and get in as many of those 90 overs in the day. But we are going to ignore that 30 minutes extra in the playing conditions when it comes to all of our examples as per law, because law does not make provision for an extra 30 minutes to get the overs in a day's play. Quite importantly, halfway through each of these sessions, there is a 4-minute drinks break. So at 11 a.m., there will be a 4-minute drinks break until 11:04. In the afternoon session at 13:40, there'll be a 4-minute drinks break. And at 4 p.m. in the evening session, there will be a 4-minute drinks break. So what does law mention in terms of duration of intervals? It only stipulates that an interval for lunch or tea shall be of the duration agreed. So those agreed durations for test matches are stipulated in the playing conditions for the International Cricket Council test matches. and the duration is taken from the call of time. So when an over ends and it is time for lunch, the umpire at the bowler's end will say over, time, and lunch. And the duration of the interval will last until the bowler's end umpire who starts the next session calls play on resumption after the interval. We do have a specific timeline or time limit for the interval between innings. It shall be 10 minutes, commencing from the fall of the last wicket of the one batting innings until the call of play for the start of the next batting innings. Of course, we will find out later in this course that an innings can be concluded not only by the fall of the 10th wicket, but that is one of the ways that an innings can close. So now law is going to give us a few time-saving mechanisms where we can maximize play by moving around and playing with the times for the intervals. First one we're going to look at is the changing of the interval between innings. Or if an interval between innings happens at a certain time, then we can take another longer interval. Firstly, if an innings ends when 10 minutes or less remains before the time agreed for close of play on any day, there shall be no further play on that day. No change shall be made to the time for the start of play on the following day. So let's give an example to illustrate this point. South Africa is playing a test match against India, and on day one, South Africa is batting first, and they are dismissed. They are all out for 312 runs for the loss of 10 wickets at 4:50 p.m., 16:50. That is 10 minutes before the scheduled close of play. If we were to take our 10-minute change of innings, would India come back and start batting at 5 p.m.? No, they would not, because 5 p.m. is the scheduled close of play. So that is why if an innings ends when 10 minutes or less remains before the scheduled close of play on any day, there shall be no further play on that day. That will be the end of that day's play. And we won't lose any overs, or at least we won't make up any overs in the subsequent day for finishing 10 minutes early. If a captain declares an innings closed or forfeits during an interruption or a scheduled interval of more than 10 minutes duration, provided that at least 10 minutes remains of the interruption or the interval, no adjustment shall be made to the time for resumption of play on account of the 10-minute interval between innings being included in the longer interval. So let me give you another example to illustrate what the law is teaching us here. We said that our lunch break in a test match in South Africa is from 12 midday until 12:40. So if South Africa were batting and they had batted the entire day one, and on day two at lunch at 12, when they went off the field to take lunch, South Africa was 420 runs for the loss of 8 wickets. Halfway through the lunch interval at 20 past 12, Themba Bavuma, the captain of South Africa, came into the umpire's change room and told us that he would like to declare South Africa's batting innings closed. That means that that innings is now over, and after lunch, India will start batting. Because Themba Bavuma declared the innings during the lunch break, and the lunch break had more than 10 minutes still remaining, he declared at 12:20. The lunch break is scheduled to end at 12:40. We are not going to add that 10-minute change of innings interval to the 40-minute lunch break. We are simply going to include that 10 minutes in the 40-minute lunch break. So we will come back out at 12:40 for India to start their batting innings after lunch at 12:40. So in that way, we are saving time by not adding the 10-minute change of innings interval to the 40-minute lunch break. However, if less than 10 minutes remains of the interruption or the interval when the captain declares the innings closed, the next innings shall commence 10 minutes after the declaration or forfeiture of that innings. What does that mean? That means that in the same scenario, if South Africa went into lunch at 412 or 20 for 8, and Themba Bavuma came to us at 12:35, only 5 minutes of the lunch interval remain. But law tells us in this bottom sentence that we need to have a full 10-minute interval for the change of innings. So we will only restart play 10 minutes after the declaration by Themba Bavuma. It was at 12:35, so we add 10 minutes to 12:35. India will start batting at 12:45. So we need a full 10 minutes for the change of innings. One of the reasons is that the side who will be batting after lunch now, they need to get ready and put their pads on, etc. But also they have the option, as Abdullah mentioned, to have the pitch rolled up to a maximum of 7 minutes. So for the roller to go out, roll for 7 minutes, and to come back off the field, that will take an entire 10 minutes. So those are two reasons why we need to have a full 10-minute change of innings interval before the resumption of play. So if that declaration is well within the lunch break, such that there's still more than 10 minutes remaining in the lunch break, then we won't need to extend the lunch break. But if that declaration is less than 10 minutes remaining of the lunch break, then we will need the full 10 minutes from when the declaration is made before we can start the next innings. So how else and when else can we change agreed time for intervals to maximize play? Law tells us that if at any time during the match, either playing time is lost through adverse conditions of ground, weather, and light, or in exceptional circumstances, or the players have occasion to leave the field other than at a scheduled interval, the time of the lunch interval or of the tea interval may be changed if the two umpires and both captains so agree. For example, if we start at 10 a.m. and halfway through our first session at 11 a.m. it starts to rain, then while we're off the field, half an hour later, it's still raining. The two captains come to us as umpires and they say, umpies, could we have an early lunch today at 11:30 instead of 12? Then because they have agreed, then we will go with that agreement. That is if us umpires are also happy with that agreement. Okay, so the law is quite flexible. If there is an agreement between the two umpires and both captains for moving of the lunch interval and of the tea interval in circumstances of adverse weather, ground, and light conditions. Now we come to specific times when there will be a change in the agreed time for the lunch or interval, whether there is an agreement or not between captains and umpires. The law here is specifying that there will be a change to the agreed time for lunch. So when will that happen? If an innings ends when 10 minutes or less remain before the agreed time for lunch, then the interval shall be taken immediately. It shall be of the agreed duration and shall be considered to include the 10-minute interval between innings. So let's say India is batting on day 3 of a test match and they are bowled out at 11:52. That is within 10 minutes of the scheduled lunch break of 12 o'clock. So law tells us in this example that we will take lunch immediately at 11:52. It will be of the agreed duration of 40 minutes. So we will come back after lunch at 12:32, 40 minutes later, and South Africa will start batting. That 40-minute lunch break will include the 10-minute change of innings interval. When else do we have to change the agreed time for lunch? If because of adverse conditions of ground, weather, or light, a stoppage occurs when 10 minutes or less remains before the agreed time for lunch, then whether or not there is an agreement between umpires and captains, the interval shall be taken immediately. It shall be of the agreed duration and play shall resume at the end of this interval or as soon as conditions allow, whichever comes later. So let's give you an example to illustrate what the law is teaching us here. If it starts raining at 11:55, it is within 10 minutes of our scheduled lunch break at 12 o'clock, then we will take lunch immediately. There is no debate. There doesn't have to be an agreement between the captains and the umpires because of adverse weather conditions within 10 minutes of the lunch break. We go off the field and we take lunch immediately at 11:55. It will be the agreed duration of 40 minutes and we will come back onto the field, ground weather and light conditions permitting, at 12:35, 40 minutes later. So now we've dealt with when and how we need to change the agreed time for lunch. Now we're going to look at when and how we can change the agreed time for tea. And remember, this is not optional. This is mandatory as per law. If these conditions are met, we will change the agreed time for tea. If an innings ends when 30 minutes or less remain before the agreed time for tea, the tea interval shall be taken immediately. It shall be of the agreed duration of 20 minutes in a test match and shall be considered to include the 10-minute interval between innings. So remember, for the lunch break to be moved, the innings had to end when 10 minutes or less remained before the lunch break. Tea is more flexible. Law tells us that if an innings ends when 30 minutes or less remain before the agreed time for tea, then the tea interval shall be taken immediately. Let me give you an example to illustrate this point. So, test match in South Africa against India. Tea is scheduled for 14:40. South Africa is all out on day 2 at 14:20. That is 20 minutes before the agreed time for tea. What happens next? Law tells us that because it's 30 minutes or less remaining before the scheduled time for tea, we take tea immediately. It will be of the agreed duration, so we take tea from 14:20 until 14:40, and India will start batting at 14:40. Why? Because the 10-minute change of innings interval was included in that 20-minute tea break. Okay, and obviously that would mean our evening session will be 20 minutes longer than previously scheduled, from 14:40 now all the way until 5 p.m. close of play. If when 30 minutes remains before the agreed time for tea, an interval between innings is already in progress, play shall resume at the end of the 10-minute interval if conditions permit, and we will play until the scheduled tea break. So in this example, let's say India were all out on day 3 of the test match at 14:05. Now remember that our tea break is scheduled for 14:40. So 14:05 is 35 minutes before the scheduled tea break. So this is more than 30 minutes before the scheduled time for tea. So can we take tea immediately? No. We take our 10-minute interval at 14:05 and we resume play at 14:15, 10 minutes later, and then South Africa will bat from 14:15 until the scheduled tea time of 14:40. So in scenario number 2 on screen, we are not changing the agreed time for the tea interval. Why? Because the innings ended more than 30 minutes before the scheduled tea break. It just so happened that we were in the 10-minute change of innings interval when it was 30 minutes before the agreed time for tea. We don't take tea 30 minutes early in that scenario. If, because of adverse conditions of ground, weather, or light, a stoppage occurs when 30 minutes or less remain before the agreed time for tea, then unless there's an agreement to change the time for tea made by the captains and the umpires, or the captains agree to forego the tea interval, then we will take tea immediately. So Remember that our scheduled tea time is 14:40. So if it starts raining at 14:15, that is 25 minutes before the scheduled tea break, then we take tea immediately. Why? Because it is less than 30 minutes to go before the agreed time for tea. Because we're coming off due to adverse weather conditions, within that 30 minutes of the scheduled tea break, we take tea immediately. So we would take tea from 14:15 until 14:35. Hopefully at 14:35 it stopped raining, so we can resume play after tea at 14:35. So then we would have saved the rain time, had it as our tea break, and then restart play before our scheduled tea time of 14:40. We're restarting at 14:35. We won't have lost any time. That is the whole purpose of moving the intervals. When else can we change the agreed time for tea? If a stoppage is already in progress when 30 minutes remains before the agreed time for tea, then we bring tea forward by 30 minutes. So let me give you an example. If it starts raining at 2 p.m., remember that our agreed time for tea is 14:40. So it starts raining 40 minutes before the scheduled tea break. We cannot take tea yet because we are still more than 30 minutes before the scheduled time for tea. When it gets to 10 past 2, 14:10, and we are still off the field for rain, then law tells us in this particular scenario that we will take tea immediately at 14:10 when it is 30 minutes before the scheduled time for tea and we're still off for any reason, then we shall take tea immediately. This is another time-saving mechanism, and hopefully after the scheduled tea break, then it stopped raining, or hopefully after the rescheduled tea break from 14:10 until 14:30. Hopefully at 14:30 it stopped raining, and then we can resume play and play until 5 p.m., the scheduled close. There's another time-saving mechanism that the law requires of the umpires to enforce. If there are 9 wickets down at the scheduled lunch break or the scheduled tea break, are we going to take lunch at 12 o'clock or are we going to take tea at 14:40? No, we're not. Why are we not going to take lunch or tea at the scheduled time when 9 wickets are down? Those of you who know your cricket will know that 10 wickets constitute a team being all out. So if a team is 9 wickets down, then the fielding team only need 1 more wicket to bowl the batting team out completely, to complete the innings, okay? And we know that generally the number 11 batter who will be in when 9 wickets are down is probably the worst batter in the team and doesn't normally bat for long. So that is why law will allow a maximum of 30 extra minutes at lunchtime or at the scheduled tea time for the fielding side to get a 10th wicket. Okay, so the interval will not be taken until the end of the over that is in progress, 30 minutes after the originally agreed time for the interval, unless the players have cause to leave the field of play or the innings is completed earlier. So if, for example, the 10th wicket falls at 1 minute past 12, then great, we will take lunch 1 minute later. If the 10th wicket falls at 12:15, then also fine, we will take lunch 15 minutes later than scheduled. If the 10th wicket has not fallen by 12:30, then the fielding side has maximized its opportunity to take the 10th wicket in that session. We have to take lunch latest 30 minutes after the scheduled lunch break. But of course, we will learn later that we need to take an interval at the end of an over normally. Okay, that's if a wicket doesn't fall. Let's move on to our drinks breaks. If on any day the captains agree that there shall be intervals for drinks, the option to take such drinks shall be available to either side. Each interval shall be kept as short as possible and shall not exceed 5 minutes. So in limited overs cricket, 50-over cricket, the drinks break is either 5 minutes or 4 minutes, depending on the playing conditions. In T20 cricket, if there are drinks breaks or they are called strategic time outs, they're usually 2.5 minutes. In test matches, the drinks breaks are 4 minutes long. I have umpired a T10 match where after the 5th over, there's a 1.5 minute drinks break. All of those are inside the 5 minute limit for a drinks break as per law. Unless the captains agree to forego drinks, a drinks interval shall be taken at the end of the over in progress when the agreed time is reached. So I mentioned to you that our test match sessions are 2 hours long, and halfway through a session, drinks will be taken. So if it's a morning session that started at 10 and lunch is at 12, then our drinks break will start at 1100 hours. However, if we are in the middle of an over, we're not going to take drinks exactly at 11 o'clock and call drinks halfway through an over. We're going to wait until the end of that over. So we might take drinks at 11:01 or 11:02, 11:03, maybe even 11:04. As long as it is at an end of an over that didn't start after 11, then we will take drinks at 11 or shortly after. What happens if a wicket falls or a batter retires within 5 minutes of the agreed time for drinks? Then we shall take drinks immediately. So if a wicket falls in a test match at 10:55, 56, 57, 58, 59, it is within 5 minutes of the scheduled drinks break of 11 a.m. Therefore, we take drinks immediately. Okay. In our lecture on Monday, we will learn about the last hour of a multiple day match. Law tells us that there shall be no drinks interval during that last hour of a multiple day match. We will go into more detail on the last hour, specifically in level 3. But for purposes of level 1, we just need to know that there are no drinks breaks allowed during the last hour of a multiple day match. Very importantly, remember that I mentioned that the scorers are part of our PCT, our playing control team. The umpires shall ensure that the scorers are informed of all agreements about the hours of play and the intervals and any changes made to any intervals under this law. Do not forget to inform the scorers of any changes to the times and durations of intervals, please. That is all the content that we are presenting for today. Thank you so much for your attention. Okay, so JG Kutsia asked at 12:30 this afternoon. He was very eager for the lecture to start. He was asking what time the lecture starts. So all the lectures start at 6 p.m. South African time. And remember, we've got 7 lectures in total. The last one will be on Monday, the 16th of March. So please, same meeting link, same start time, every lecture, Mondays and Wednesdays, starting this previous Monday, the 23rd of Feb, last lecture, Monday, the 16th of March. Okay, we try and present for an hour and a half, and then we try and have 30 minutes of questions and answers to finish in 2 hours. Right, moving along to questions that were asked during the lecture. Nikki asks, how are unreasonable pitch conditions defined or determined? So Nikki, this is a tricky one because you do not know what a dangerous or an unreasonable pitch looks like. A pitch could look terrible but play very well. A pitch could look amazing but play dangerously. So we know from experience that if a pitch is wet, then the bounce is going to be unpredictably high, and that can be dangerous for batters. You cannot have a delivery that is full in length, that jumps up and goes towards the height of a batter's head. That would be considered dangerous. So we know for a fact that if there's a wet pitch wet patch on the pitch, then we won't start play until that pitch is dried and is considered playable. So quite often it is a bit of a trial and error in terms of what a pitch looks like versus what it will play. We cannot, as umpires, we are mandated by the International Cricket Council, Cricket South Africa, Western Province Cricket Umpires Association, or Western Province Cricket Association to try and maximize play, but player safety always has to be number one in terms of our thinking of the conditions. So really it is determined by what we see when play actually starts, whether a pitch is dangerous or unreasonable to play on. Nikki, I hope that answers your question. Arno, the return crease be seen as the edge of the playable pitch? No, Arno. If I go back to the slides that Abdullah presented, I'm quite sure it told us that the width of the pitch is 3.05 meters, okay? And the width of the bowling crease, which is covered or sort of bound by the 2 return creases, is 2.64 meters. So on each side of the return creases, you still have, let me do the maths for you quickly, 3.05 meters minus 2.64 meters. You've got 41 centimeters divided by 2. You've got 20.5 centimeters either wide of the return creases. That is the width of your pitch. Okay, so the return crease does not mark the width of the pitch. The width of the pitch is an extra 20.5 centimeters wide of the return creases. I hope that answers your question. I don't know. Okay. Frank Hall asks, please can you clarify the difference between the pitch width of 10 feet, which is 3.05 meters, and the length of the bowling crease, which is 2.64 centimeters. When the diagram focused on the bowling crease, how can you tell it's referring to the bowling crease as opposed to the pitch width? So I'm just going to show the slide that I think Frank is referring to. Bear with me while I share my screen. So I think Frank is referring to this diagram. And remember what I've just said to you, Frank, is that the pitch width is 20.5 centimeters wide of both return creases. Okay. And also the minimum length of the popping crease is 3.66 meters or 12 feet. So that is wider than the bowling crease. So when you see the bowling crease, which is bound by the two return creases, you will notice that there is X amount of room outside of the return creases where the pitch ends is 20.5 centimeters wide of both return creases. Okay, in some countries, I think the West Indies, and maybe I've seen it in Sri Lanka as well, they do have dotted lines to show the end of the pitch. In PAL here in South Africa for the SA20, where sometimes the end of the pitch is not easily visible to the rest of the square, then they mark the end of the pitch with a thin green line. And that is how we know that that is the end of the pitch. It is definitely not the return creases that mark the width of a pitch. Okay. Let's move on to the next question in the chat box. Rifat asks, what is the distance of the offside and the leg side wide guidelines from the stumps? Good question, Rifat. And firstly, I need to mention to you that there are no wide guidelines in law as per the diagram that I have just displayed, and I will display it again. The reason that there are no wide guidelines in law is that the law refers to more-day cricket. And if you watch a test match between South Africa and India or any other test playing nations, you will see that there are no wide guidelines. Okay, the wide guidelines are for limited overs cricket, and the measurements are in the playing conditions. So This pitch was prepared and the creases were marked for a limited overs match at JB Marks Oval in Potchefstroom in South Africa. So I'll take you through the wide guideline measurements. They are not measured from the stumps. They are measured from the return crease. Measurement from the inside edge of the return crease to the inside edge of the offside wide guideline is 43.18 centimeters. Okay, I'm not sure what that is in inches. Just divide by 2.5, you'll get a close enough figure. So 43.18 centimeters from the return crease to the offside wide guideline. And there are offside wide guidelines on both sides of the crease because you have right-hand batters and you have left-hand batters. Then Rifat asks about leg side wide guidelines. There was a leg side wide trial by the International Cricket Council, as well as professional cricket, men's cricket in the test playing nations. The trial went on from, I think, September 2025 until the end of January 2026, where the protected area lines that you see here next to the stumps were lengthened to go from the popping crease to the bowling crease, or from the bowling crease to the popping crease. And that was a leg side wide guideline. And the measurement there is 30.48 centimeters from the middle stump. 1 foot or 30.48 centimeters from the middle stump to the inside edge of the leg side wide guidelines. They are not, as you see them here, they are not leg side wide guidelines. These are protected area markings, and we will learn about the protected area in level 2 and level 3. Okay. Moving on to the next question from Tertius. Which parties are all involved with the decision on what type of pitch to be prepared for a match? So Tertius, according to law, the ground staff or the ground authority, they should prepare a pitch and the outfield to the best of their ability without any influence from anyone else. Okay. But to be fair, it doesn't say in the law that they can't take influence from anyone else. But it also doesn't say that they should take influence from anyone else. It just says that the pitch and the outfield will be prepared before the match by the ground authority of that field. We do have home ground advantage everywhere in the world where cricket is played, where the home team, whether it is a club team, whether it is a provincial team, whether it is an international team, they will typically ask the ground staff to prepare a certain type of wicket which will suit their team's strengths. It is not disallowed. It is not discouraged. It does happen, and it will probably continue happening until cricket is played. So Tertius, according to law, it doesn't stipulate. It only says that the ground authority is in charge to prepare a pitch and the field. It is silent about influence from home captain, home coach, but it is common practice around the world that the home captain or the home coach asks the curator for a specific pitch. Okay, Cecilia has given me her email address. I have added it to the mailing list. She will, from here on in, get all the lecture reminder emails as well as the emails with the link to the lecture recordings. And as normal, this lecture is being recorded and the link will and the recording will be uploaded to our YouTube page tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. South African time, and the link will be sent out on email as well as on all our WhatsApp groups. Raman asks, what happens if it rains in between the innings? Rolling is allowed before starting again in between the innings. Yes, Raman. If South Africa are bowled out at 13:15 during the afternoon session of a test match and it starts raining during that change of innings, India, who are going to bat next, they will request, or they have the option to request, a roller when it stops raining for the pitch to be rolled up to a maximum of 7 minutes before India starts batting. Even if it rains for the next 2 days, before India start batting again, they have the option to request for rolling up to 7 minutes. They don't have to roll the pitch. They can exercise the option, or they can not use that option if they don't want to. Norman, I see your email as well. I will also add it to the mailing list. Zimi asks, what was Law 10? Law 10 was covering of the pitch. Just checking if it's covering of the pitch or covering of the field, just to get the exact terminology for you. Covering the pitch is the name of Law 10, and you can watch the lecture tomorrow morning on YouTube, Zimi. Sias asks, can the return crease be seen as the edge of the playable pitch? No, Sias, I've answered that. The width of the pitch is 3.05 meters, and the width of the bowling crease, which is bound by the two return creases, is 2.64 meters. So there's 20.5 centimeters each side, 20.5 centimeters outside of the return crease that is still considered part of the pitch. The pitch ends 3.05 meters wide. However, interestingly, if we are playing on a mat, and there are a lot of artificial surface pitches around the world, and that mat is only 2.64 meters wide, so the return creases are right on the edge of that mat, then yes, any delivery that lands off the mat will be considered off the pitch, and we will learn later in the laws that that is considered a no ball. But that is only if you have a physical pitch that is an artificial surface that is laid on a natural turf outfield. If the width of that pitch is 2.64, then that will be the width of the pitch. Okay, but if you're playing on a turf pitch and you've got return creases 2.64 wide of each other, and you've got a pitch 3.05 meters wide, that is the width of the pitch, 3.05, not 2.64 meters. Kennedy asks, is there a crease thickness limit? No, Kennedy. Interestingly enough, the lines that the ground staff paint on the pitches, they can be as thick as they want. Okay, what is important is the measurements of the creases are based on the edge of the line that is closest to the stumps. Okay, so I'm going to just put on again the crease in the JB Marks oval in Potchefstroom, and I'm going to explain to you how we measure the crease. So we learned earlier that the width of the bowling crease from the one return crease to the other return crease is 2.64 meters. How we measure that 2.64? The inside edge of the one return crease to the inside edge of the other return crease is 2.64. Okay, so this return crease, both the return creases can be as thick as the ground staff want them to be. What we are concerned about is the inside edge of those lines. If we look at judging of a no ball, which we will get to in lecture number 4 or 5, the front foot of a bowler needs to land with some part of the foot behind the back edge of the popping crease. Okay, so remember the distance between the bowling crease and the popping crease, 1.22 meters. That is from the back edge of the bowling crease to the back edge of the popping crease. Why the back edge of the bowling crease? You will see if you look closely that these stumps are pitched on the back edge of the line. They're not pitched in the middle of the bowling crease line. They're pitched on the back edge of the bowling crease. So remember what I said, our measurements are always from the edge of the line that's closest to the stumps. The edge of the bowling crease line that's closest to the stumps is the back edge. And the edge of the line that's closest to the stumps of the popping crease is the back edge. So our distance, 1.22, is measured from the back edge of the popping crease to the back edge of the bowling crease. The thickness of the line does not matter. I hope that demonstration answers your question, Kennedy. Neville asks, a captain on winning the toss informed the umpire that they choose to bat, and immediately thereafter says he meant opposition to bat. The opposing captain does not object and accepts the change of mind. What happens next? So Neville, we will get to the toss law, law 13, in Monday's lecture. And but I will quickly answer your question. It says that the captain winning the toss must mention if they want to bat or bowl immediately. And once they have mentioned what they want to do, then the decision cannot be changed. So you are saying that the opposing captain was okay with that change? I think in umpiring, we always talk about using law 43, common sense. I think if the opposing captain does not object to the immediate change of mind by the captain who won the toss, then I would allow that change. But if the opposing captain did not agree to the change in mind, even though it was immediate, then I will not allow that change. As per law, I've flicked my slides to it. It says, as soon as the toss is completed, the captain of the side winning the toss shall notify the opposing captain and the umpires of his or her decision to bat or to field first. Once notified, the decision cannot be changed. So where there's a disagreement with the captain winning the toss wanting to change their decision, but the opposing captain does not allow for the change of that decision, we have to refer back to the toss and say, sorry, captain winning the toss, law says that you cannot change your decision. But if the opposing captain was okay with the changing of decision, I would go along with that change. Next question from Kennedy. Is no ball called when bowler's back foot is outside the return crease? Yes, Kennedy. We will learn that in Law 21, the no ball law. Celeste says we had the same thing with our last match and the umpire called it no ball. Well done to that umpire. Okay. Sandeep asks, bowler comes to bowl. It is whose responsibility to notify which side or arm he or she is going to bowl. If the bowler does not inform the umpire, is the responsibility for the umpire to ask the bowler which side or arm he or she is going to bowl? What is the law? Sandeep, that is also covered in Law 21. It is one of the ways that a bowler can bowl a no ball is if they don't inform or they misinform the umpire the mode of delivery. Whose responsibility is it? Good question. What does the law say? The law says that the umpire shall ascertain whether the bowler intends to bowl right-handed or left-handed, and whether the bowler intends to bowl over or around the wicket, and shall so inform the striker. So the onus is actually on the umpire to ask the bowler. Okay. It is normal practice for the bowler to tell the umpire, but if the bowler doesn't tell the umpire, then the umpire needs to ascertain by asking the bowler what mode of delivery he or she will be bowling. Okay. Abir has the measurement for the wide guideline in inches, 17 inches from the return crease. Thank you so much, Abir from Dallas. Good to have you in our lectures once again. Brinshia asks, we played a game at Khayelitsha Cricket Club, but the ground was very unsafe. I mean, there was not even really grass on where we were playing, but we were forced to play there. What is the right thing to do as a player? So, Brinshia, remember on Monday, I mentioned in Law 2, the umpires are the sole judges of ground, weather, and light conditions. So, if you had official umpires, it would be up to them to decide whether the field was dangerous or unreasonable for play to continue or to start. If you had player umpires who are not official umpires, then you would have to go on the captain's agreement. Did both captains think the field was safe to play? Probably not. Usually the home captain says the field is safe and the away captain says the field is not safe. In that case, then you need to submit a report, including pictures and videos, to Western Province Cricket Association, playing under protest of the fitness of the ground for play. Okay, but importantly, you did the right thing by playing. If you did not play the match, then you automatically forfeit the match. So you play the match and then send a report through to Western Province Cricket Association, and the local leagues committee will adjudicate whether they think the field was fit for play or not, and they will decide if they feel it wasn't fit for play, what the outcome of the match will be. Okay, so if there are official umpires, they will make the call. If there are no official umpires, then you play under protest and submit a report after the match. Neville asks, on reaching the ground, you observe that the wicket is being put incorrectly. Can an umpire make the corrections? So Neville, I'm not sure what you mean exactly by the wicket being put in incorrectly. Maybe it means the stumps are pitched not on the back edge of the bowling crease, but in the middle of the bowling crease line. That is not a material change in the pitch. So I would leave it there. If you get to a ground and you measure the pitch, and instead of 22 yards or 20.12 centimeters, it is 21.12 centimeters. It is too long by a meter. That is a material error in the length of the pitch that will need to change. So what we have decided as a group of umpires at Western Province Cricket Umpires Association is if a pitch is out by 30 centimeters or less, so if it's too long by 30 centimeters or too short by 30 centimeters, we will not change it. We will merely inform the ground staff or the home captain that this pitch is too long or too short by 30 centimeters. Please make sure that it is changed for the next match. If it is too long or too short by more than 30 centimeters, then we do consider that material. So we will have to move one of the creases so that the pitch length is corrected. And we will request the home captain or the ground staff, if there is ground staff available, to move one of the creases so that the length is 20.12 meters. It is a big job to remove one crease and repaint it, and also pitch the stumps at a different area on the strip, on the playing strip. So that is why we allow up to 30 centimeters variance, which is about 1 foot variance. 30 centimeters out of 20.12 centimeters is only 1.5% variance. So we don't consider that material, but anything more than 30 centimeters we consider material and would need to be changed. Zim asks, do umpires use guidance of the crease to determine wide ball? If so, what do they look at? So Zimi, in limited overs cricket, you do have offside wide guidelines, as I've shown at the JB Marks Oval. Abdullah also showed it earlier in his presentation. Those are the guidelines that we use. In unlimited overs cricket or multiple day cricket, like a 5-day test match, the umpires use the return crease as the unofficial offside wide guideline. Jean-Pierre Villette asks, are you allowed as a spin bowler to switch it up and bowl a few regular fast deliveries in the same over? Yes, Jean-Pierre. All you need to tell the umpire is if you're bowling right-handed or left-handed, if you're bowling over the wicket or around the wicket, whether you're bowling spin, medium pace or fast does not need to be communicated and can be changed every delivery if a bowler so wishes. Lani asks, in general, where can I get the pitch measurements for school cricket in the Western Cape, under 11 specifically? and girls. Will you have it? And can I send it to you? Lani, unfortunately not. I do not have pitch measurements for youth cricket. The law says that the unions are allowed to make pitch measurements shorter for junior cricket. What that length is probably varies from school to school, from province to province, from country to country. So I can only think if there is a guideline for Western Province that the youth cricket coordinator of Western Province Cricket Umpires Association has it. I'm going to put her email address. In fact, Lani, I'm going to ask you to WhatsApp me, and I will give you the email address of Carmela Adams, the youth coordinator of cricket in Western Province. And she will maybe, if anybody knows, she will know what it is. Okay, so you should have my WhatsApp number, but I've just put it in the chat box for you. And I will email, just WhatsApp me, and then I'll email you. I will WhatsApp you Carmela's email address. You can ask her for pitch lengths. Right, so now I'm going to activate everybody's microphones because I've gone through all the questions in the chat box. Thank you very much for your interaction so far. And if there are any more questions, please put your hand up and I will acknowledge you and ask you to unmute your microphone, and then you can ask your question to the floor. If there are no more questions, I will take this opportunity to thank everybody for their attendance and their interaction. And remember that this lecture is being recorded and will be posted onto our YouTube channel tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. South African time. Raman, you've got your hand up. Please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
I'm audible.
Yes, go ahead, Raman.
I just want to ask one question where, for example, if it's rain in between, I asked in the chats also during the play of match, should the roller be allowed to roll the wicket at that time?
In between innings, Raman.
Yes, in between.
If one team has finished batting and then it starts raining during the change of intervals, before the next team starts batting, they do have the option to pick a roller. Heavy roller, medium roller.
No, not between. Sorry to interrupt you in between. It's not between the innings. I'm saying, for example, first team is batting right now, and the rain comes. Some of the water goes on the wicket, and the team says we want a roller. So should that be allowed? That's the question I'm asking.
So what often happens, Raman, is if the pitch gets wet due to rain, then the umpires and the ground staff can use a roller to dry the pitch. So you've got what's called Hessian, which is a cloth material that when you put the Hessian on the pitch and you roll the pitch with the Hessian on top of the pitch, then the water in the pitch comes up and it gets sucked by the Hessian. That is a way that you can dry the pitch. So it's not the only way that you can dry the pitch. You do have some grounds around the world which have blowers. You can use blowers. You can also put what we call in South Africa dry bully, which is thin sand. put it on the wet patch, and then roll on that wet patch. So you can use the roller to dry a pitch. Yes, it is allowed, but it won't be on the request of either side. It will be on the request of the umpires or the suggestion of the ground staff for them to try and get play to resume as soon as possible. I hope that answers the question, Raman.
Yeah, if the opposite, for example, if the fielding captain doesn't agree, he doesn't want to get rolled. Still there is an option of getting the wicket rolled. For
Remember
example,
that the ground conditions are for the umpires together with the ground staff to maintain and to improve for play to take place. The captains are not allowed to deny the use of any materials or equipment for drying of the pitch. So no, they can complain about it, but it's not their decision to allow or disallow the use of the roller to dry the pitch.
okay, cool. Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome, Raman. Okay. I see there's been another question or comment in the chat box. Ugandar says, answering John Pierre's question, as long as he keeps the same arm and the same side of bowling, there is no restriction to bowl spin or fast bowling. Correct, Ugandar, as I explained earlier. I do not see any more questions or comments in the chat box. I do not see any more hands up in the meeting room. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody for their attendance and interaction today. Our next lecture will be on Monday, I don't know what the date is on Monday. Let me check my phone. Monday, the 2nd of March. And thank you very much. The 2nd of March, 2026, same time, same place, same Microsoft Teams meeting link. This meeting has been recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel by 11 a.m. South African time tomorrow morning. We will see you next week, Monday. Have a great week and weekend when it comes. Thank you very much once again for your attendance and your interaction. Have a great night further. Thank you and goodbye.